Virgo, right now, as you hear these words, somewhere in the vast silence of the universe, a clock is ticking. Not a poetic clock, not a metaphor, a real cosmic countdown that has been running since the day you were born. It's counting down to your moment. The moment when every seed you've planted in faith, every act of kindness given without return, every silent prayer whispered into the dark, will finally find its way back to you. The universe never forgets, Virgo. Every tear, every sleepless night, every time you smiled through heartbreak, all of it has been written in the book of time. And now, the page is turning. I'm not here to give you vague promises or empty hope. I'm here to tell you that there's an alignment taking place, a divine synchronization that's been waiting for your soul to be ready. You see, Virgo, this is not punishment. This is not delay. This is divine timing. The kind of timing that only arrives when your energy, your faith, and your lessons finally meet at one single point, the point of transformation. You've given so much, haven't you? You've carried the weight of others with quiet grace. You've been the healer, the listener, the steady one, even when no one noticed how tired you were. But the universe has noticed. It always notices. And now, that unseen force is moving in your favor. The clock is not ticking against you, it's ticking for you. There will come a day, soon, when life will mirror back the love you've given, multiplied beyond recognition. When the people who once overlooked you will stand in awe of the strength you found in solitude. And you'll realize, you were never forgotten. You were being prepared. So, take a breath. Feel that pulse beneath your skin. That's not just your heart, that's the rhythm of the universe reminding you that your time is near. The wait has not been wasted. The silence has not been empty. Every delay was protection. Every ending was redirection. Virgo, your name is being called in the language of light. The universe has kept your appointment, and it's arriving right on time. Before we dive deeper into this message, take a moment to ground your energy. Like, share, and subscribe to Mindfulness Meditation, where every word is crafted to guide your spirit home. Your support helps us create more stories of healing, awakening, and cosmic truth. Now, let's step together beyond the noise of the world, and into the whisper of destiny, because your hour, Virgo, has begun. The silent weight of perfection, inside the hidden pain of Virgo. They say Virgo is the one who always has it together. The one who holds the room in quiet strength, whose words heal others, whose calm steadiness feels like home. And maybe that's true, on the surface. But underneath that composure lies something most people never see, the exhaustion of someone who has spent a lifetime holding everyone else's world together, while quietly watching their own begin to crack. Virgo's pain isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself in chaos or drama. It lingers in the pauses, the moments after everyone leaves the room, when the silence feels heavier than it should. It hides in the small sigh before sending one more text of encouragement, in the forced smile that says, "I'm fine," when they're not. Because Virgo's instinct is to serve, to fix, to bring order into disorder, even if it means losing themselves in the process. There's a kind of nobility in that, but also a quiet tragedy. For Virgo, love often becomes labor. They love by showing up, by remembering, by tending to the details others overlook. They notice the things that are broken, in people, in relationships, in the world, and they cannot look away. But what happens when the healer runs out of strength? When the caretaker's hands begin to tremble? That's the wound Virgo rarely admits, the fear that if they stop trying, everything will fall apart. So they stay, even in places that drain them, with people who no longer see them. They confuse peace with responsibility, love with duty. And somewhere along the way, they forget that they, too, are allowed to rest. Yet this is where the story shifts, because the universe has a way of bringing even the most selfless souls to their knees, not to punish them, but to return them to themselves. Virgo's breaking point isn't an ending, it's a sacred pause. A moment where perfection finally collapses under its own weight, leaving only what's real, the tender, unguarded truth of a soul that just wants to be enough without earning it. When Virgo finally lets go, of control, of guilt, of the impossible standards they've carried, something miraculous happens. They begin to see beauty not in what's flawless, but in what's honest. They realize that imperfection isn't a failure, it's proof of life. The cracks they tried to hide become openings for light to enter. I've always believed that Virgo's true purpose isn't to fix the world, it's to love it anyway. To bring grace into the chaos, not by controlling it, but by being present within it. To understand that healing doesn't always mean mending. sometimes it means allowing. Maybe the lesson for Virgo, and for all of us who carry that same quiet ache, is this: you don't have to be the strong one all the time. You don't have to earn your worth through service or sacrifice. The people who truly see you don't need you to be perfect, they just need you to be real. And maybe that's the paradox of Virgo's journey. The same perfection that once isolated them becomes the mirror that frees them. Because once they realize they were never meant to be flawless, only faithful to their own soul, they can finally exhale. So if you're listening and you feel that silent fatigue, the kind that comes from being the one who holds it all together, take this as your permission to rest, to breathe, to let something fall apart without rushing to fix it. The world won't end. It might just start to make sense again. Because Virgo's magic has never been in doing everything right. It's in the quiet grace of showing up, heart open, even when they're tired. It's in loving deeply, even when love doesn't return the same way. It's in being human, gloriously, beautifully human, and realizing that was always enough. The great spiritual law: the universe never forgets what Virgo gives. There is an invisible law that governs the soul, older than time, older than reason. The mystics called it the spiritual law of return. It says, nothing pure, nothing given in truth, ever disappears. Every act of kindness, every restrained word, every sleepless night spent worrying for someone else, it all circles back, eventually. Not always from the same hands you gave to, not always in the same form you imagined, but always in perfect measure. Virgo, this is your law. You live by it, even when you don't know its name. You have spent lifetimes giving, your patience, your care, your precision, your faith, as if love itself were a sacred duty. You have walked through fire for people who would never understand the cost. And when they left, you didn't curse them, you prayed for their peace. That's how noble your heart is. But here's the thing about cosmic justice: it doesn't forget. The universe is not blind to those quiet sacrifices made without witness. The love you gave that wasn't returned has not vanished, it is accumulating. Like water behind a dam, pressure is building in silence. One day, Virgo, the floodgates will open. The energy you poured into others will come back, magnified, purified, and tailored to what your soul needs most. That is the promise of the law of return. What you give in light always finds its way home. Yet before that reward arrives, there's something the universe asks of you: recognition. Because for too long, Virgo, you've mistaken endurance for virtue. You've thought that if you kept giving, one day someone would notice your effort and meet you halfway. But that's not how energy works. You've been pouring your sacred essence into vessels that cannot hold it. You see, Virgo tends to attract takers, not out of weakness, but out of frequency. The warmth of your soul draws those who are cold inside. Your stability becomes their shelter. Your wisdom becomes their compass. But not everyone who receives light learns to give it back. And when you stay too long in those exchanges, you start to dim, confusing depletion with devotion. It's not your kindness that needs fixing, it's your direction. The law never said, give endlessly. It said, give consciously. Ask yourself this: why do you find comfort in being the healer, the helper, the one who never asks? Maybe it's because somewhere in childhood, or in another lifetime, you learned that your worth is measured by usefulness. That love must be earned through effort. So you became everyone's sun, the steady glowing force that keeps their world alive, and never stopped to ask, who will be the sun for me? This is where the awakening begins. Because the universe cannot give to a heart that refuses to receive. The moment Virgo stops trying to earn love, the balance begins to correct itself. When you say, I have done enough, the scales of the cosmos finally start to tip in your favor. You are not being punished for your generosity, you are being redirected toward equal exchange. Toward people and places where your light will be honored, not harvested. I believe the universe is profoundly personal. It doesn't repay you with random luck, it repays you with meaning. If you gave love, it will return as peace. If you gave patience, it will return as timing. If you gave understanding, it will return as clarity. And when it comes, when that sacred equilibrium finally restores, you will understand why the waiting had to be long. The reward had to mature to match your soul. So, Virgo, release the worry that you've been forgotten. You haven't. You've been recorded, in the most intricate ledger of light that the universe keeps. Every act, every prayer, every tear, documented in divine ink. And perhaps, the greatest miracle isn't that you will be repaid, it's that you will finally feel worthy to receive. Because the law of return doesn't just balance energy, it heals self-worth. It reminds you that you were never just a giver. You were, and always will be, the sacred source through which love flows. When Virgo finally accepts that truth, the universe bows, and begins to give back everything you once thought you lost. The appointed day, when the universe finally remembers you. Virgo, there comes a moment in every lifetime when the air itself feels different. When the silence carries a pulse, and something unseen begins to move in your favor. It's not imagination. It's not coincidence. It's the appointed day, the moment when the universe finally remembers your name. You've spent years walking with quiet dignity through the storms of life. You've poured your love into others like an endless river, never asking much in return. You've waited. You've endured. You've healed in silence, even when no one noticed the strength it took to do so. And now, the clock of destiny has begun to strike. Not in thunder, not in chaos, but in alignment. One by one, the energies you've invested are finding their way back home to you. I've always believed that the universe doesn't forget kindness. It simply takes its time, orchestrating the right people, the right opportunities, and the right season for your harvest to arrive. And for Virgo, that season begins now. For those born between August 23rd and September 1st, your gifts will be recognized in ways you once thought impossible. The ideas that were ignored, the efforts that went unseen, the dedication that was dismissed, they will all rise to the surface like gold finally freed from stone. Recognition, success, or creative breakthrough, whatever form it takes, it will not come from luck. It will come as a divine acknowledgement of every hour you've worked with integrity when no one was watching. For those between September 2nd and September 12th, your blessing comes through love, but not the kind you've known before. This love won't demand you to shrink, to prove, or to chase. It will meet you exactly where you are, healed, whole, and unapologetically yourself. The universe has heard your private wish, to be loved in a way that feels safe, soft, and sacred. This love will not arrive to complete you, Virgo. It will mirror the wholeness you've built within. And for the souls born September 13th to September 22nd, your reward is tangible. Financial restoration, new resources, doors opening where you once saw only walls. You'll see how divine timing operates with mathematical precision, the same way a seed bursts open only when the soil is ready, not before. The delays weren't denials, they were alignments in disguise. But beyond the rewards, there's something deeper unfolding here, something more sacred than success, more lasting than love, more satisfying than wealth. It's the quiet realization that the universe was never ignoring you. It was preparing you. Every disappointment was a divine redirection. Every ending was a lesson in boundaries. Every lonely night was an initiation into strength. You were being refined, not forgotten. When you reach this stage of awakening, the air feels charged with meaning. You begin to notice patterns, signs, synchronicities, gentle winks from the cosmos. You find yourself saying, everything had to happen exactly this way. And it's true. Because the appointed day doesn't just arrive, it reveals. It reveals how every detour was a part of your map. How every heartbreak shaped your compassion. How every act of faith, no matter how small, rewrote your destiny. From a psychological lens, this is the stage of individuation, when the self finally reconciles its purpose with its pain. But in spiritual language, we call it awakening. It's when the old stories lose their power and the soul begins to remember why it came here in the first place. Virgo, you are not being rewarded for your suffering. You are being elevated through it. So when that door opens, and it will, step through it with quiet confidence. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You've already proven it by surviving with grace. When love arrives, let it flow. When success finds you, receive it without guilt. When peace returns, don't question if you deserve it. You do. You always did. The universe has perfect memory, Virgo. And today, it remembers you. The clock is no longer counting down, it's striking your name. Take this as your sign to rise, to open, to receive. Because your appointed day isn't coming someday in the future. It's unfolding now, in this breath, in this moment, in you. The signs before the miracle, when the universe starts whispering your name. There's a strange calm that arrives before the storm of blessings. A hush that isn't empty, but sacred, like the moment before dawn when the world holds its breath. Virgo, if lately you've been feeling lighter for no apparent reason, if the heaviness in your chest has quietly lifted without explanation, then hear me when I say this. Something beautiful is on its way. The energy is shifting. The tide is turning. You are standing on the threshold of your appointed miracle. This isn't blind hope. It's alignment. You've walked through enough darkness to recognize that peace doesn't just happen. It returns when the soul has done its cleansing. And lately, that's exactly what you've been doing, even if you didn't realize it. You may have noticed the small signs, the repeating numbers that seem to follow you everywhere. 1111 on the clock, 222 on a receipt, 333 in the most random place. You laugh it off, but deep down something inside you knows it's not coincidence. It's the universe whispering, stay ready. You're closer than you think. Or maybe it's that song that plays out of nowhere, the one that says the words you needed to hear but couldn't say out loud. Or that conversation with a stranger who somehow speaks right into your situation, as if heaven momentarily borrowed their voice. These are not random moments. They're preludes. Cosmic confirmations that your frequency is rising to meet your destiny. Psychologically, this is what I call the transition of vibration. When your energy starts moving from survival to creation, your outer world begins to rearrange itself. People fall away. Old relationships dissolve. The things that once triggered you don't hold the same power anymore. You no longer feel the need to fight for validation or chase clarity, because peace has become more valuable than explanation. That's when you know you've crossed the invisible bridge from endurance to becoming. Tears have likely visited you in this stage. Not the tears of despair, but the ones that wash you clean. It's a sacred kind of crying, the kind that comes not from pain but release. When the past rises again, it's not to haunt you, but to leave you. You are not regressing, Virgo. You're detoxing from years of holding on. Think of it like the sky breaking open after a long drought. The rain must fall before the green can return. Spiritually speaking, this is the pre-miracle quiet. A phase where heaven rearranges the pieces of your story behind the curtain. That's why everything feels strangely still, because the universe is working in silence. And in that silence, you begin to notice something miraculous. Small acknowledgments appearing out of nowhere. Someone recognizes your effort. An opportunity finds its way to your inbox. A door you thought was closed suddenly cracks open. These aren't accidents. They're the tremors before the breakthrough. The Virgo soul has a deep relationship with timing. Your life has always unfolded through patterns of patience, not speed. That's why your miracles don't come as explosions. They come as symphonies. Soft beginnings that swell into undeniable truth. And right now, that music is beginning again. From a psychological lens, what you're experiencing is the restoration of trust. Not in others, but in life itself. After years of questioning whether your efforts mattered, you're finally beginning to feel that subtle but certain yes from the universe. You feel guided again. Protected again. And that quiet faith you thought you lost? It's been waiting in the background, just to rise now when you're finally ready to believe without proof. In this stage, even the smallest coincidences start to feel divine, because they are. You've entered resonance with your next chapter. The people and experiences that match your healed energy are already making their way toward you. The phone call, the opportunity, the love that meets your frequency, all of it is in motion. So if you've been feeling lighter, if your nights are quieter, if your heart hums with inexplicable peace, don't question it. That's what it feels like when the universe remembers your coordinates. You're not waiting anymore, you're aligning. And when the miracle finally arrives, it won't come with fireworks. It will come with a whisper, a familiar calm that says, this is it. You made it. So breathe, Virgo. Don't rush the unfolding. You're already standing in the prelude to your blessing. The signs are everywhere. The calm, the tears, the coincidences, the quiet knowing. These are not small things. They are the gentle fingerprints of a universe preparing to hand you back everything you thought you'd lost. You've entered the sacred space before the miracle, and soon, the silence will give birth to something extraordinary. The art of receiving, Virgo, and the unusual miracle that's about to begin. There comes a time in every Virgo's life when the universe whispers, you've given enough. It's not a warning, nor a reprimand. It's a benediction. A gentle reminder that love, too, must flow in both directions. That the river of your soul cannot only pour outward, it must also be fed. 4 years, Virgo, you've perfected the art of giving. Your time, your empathy, your quiet patience. You've held space for others when no one held space for you. You've stood as the pillar while everyone leaned, and somehow convinced yourself that asking for help was a weakness. But the truth is, receiving is not selfish. It's sacred. The greatest shift in your soul begins not when you give more, but when you finally allow yourself to receive. Because to receive is to trust. To receive is to surrender control. And for a sign that has built its life around precision, reliability, and self-sufficiency, that's an act of courage far greater than any sacrifice. When Virgo opens their heart to receive, they teach the universe a new rhythm, that love is not a one-way offering, but a circle, complete, balanced, divine. There's a misconception that being strong means doing it all alone. But real strength often lies in the soft, unguarded moments, the willingness to say, I could use a little help. When you allow someone to love you, you're not taking. You're giving them the gift of being part of your healing. Think about it. How many times have you been someone's miracle? The friend who stayed, the listener who understood, the healer who asked for nothing in return? And yet, when someone tries to give you the same grace, you flinch, as if love must always be earned. But here's the quiet truth the universe wants you to remember. You are already worthy of ease. You don't have to struggle for every blessing. You don't have to prove your goodness through exhaustion. The world doesn't need your perfection, it needs your presence, soft, open, and ready to receive. And when you finally do, something extraordinary begins to happen. It starts small, subtle, almost too good to be true. A door opens just when you stop knocking. A kind word finds you on a day you needed it most. A connection forms that feels different, easy, aligned, without the ache of proving or chasing. That's not coincidence. That's the unusual miracle. The kind of miracle that doesn't crash through your life in thunder and light, but hums quietly in perfect timing. It's when everything begins to fit, the right people, the right opportunities, the right peace. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to earn it. You simply step into resonance with it. It's the universe saying, now you know the other half of the law. For every act of giving, there is a divine act of receiving waiting to unfold. And maybe this is what your soul has been preparing for all along, to move from scarcity to abundance, from doing to being, from fixing to flowing. The Virgo who once believed that rest was indulgence now understands that rest is reverence. The Virgo who feared letting go now sees that letting go was never about losing, it was about making space for something better. I've come to believe that this moment, this shift, is the true reward for all the invisible labor of love you've done. It's the universe's way of saying, you're safe now. You can put the armor down. Because the miracle you've been waiting for isn't a single event, it's a new state of existence. Where giving and receiving dance in perfect harmony. Where love flows both ways. Where you stop surviving and begin allowing. So if everything in your life is starting to feel lighter, if joy comes easier, if peace no longer feels like a distant guest, don't doubt it. Don't analyze it. Don't wait for it to fall apart. This is not luck. This is alignment. This is your unusual miracle, unfolding quietly, perfectly, exactly on time. Full circle, the moment the universe finds you again. There comes a moment, Virgo, when the soul exhales. When the noise quiets, the storms settle, and what once felt like chaos begins to make sense. That moment, the quiet recognition that every delay had meaning, is what I call the full circle. It's not dramatic. It doesn't arrive with thunder. It comes gently, like morning light slipping through the cracks of a long night, reminding you that you never really lost anything. You were only being prepared to receive it in its highest form. 4 years, you've carried the weight of waiting. Waiting for answers, for justice, for love to be returned in kind. You gave, and gave, and gave again, until giving became your second language. And somewhere in that rhythm of sacrifice, you began to wonder if the universe had gone silent. But here's the truth. Silence was never abandonment. It was preparation. Because sometimes the divine must first remove what distracts you before it can deliver what's meant for you. Every heartbreak was a teacher in disguise. Every rejection was redirection. The ones who failed to see your worth were simply tools of contrast, so that when real love, real peace, real recognition finally arrived, you would know it, not with your mind, but with your soul. You see, life doesn't just hand you blessings, it calibrates you to hold them. Psychologically, this is the point of integration, when the lessons of pain no longer feel like punishment, but wisdom. Spiritually, it's the sacred return, when all you've poured out into the world begins to flow back toward you. This is not karma as retribution, This is karma as restoration. The harvest of everything you've sown in faith. You're entering a chapter where you no longer chase. What belongs to you comes naturally, almost effortlessly. Not because the world suddenly became fair, but because you have become aligned. You've learned the art of release, of letting what's untrue fall away without needing to fix or explain it. And in that surrender, Virgo, you've unlocked the secret most never find. The universe doesn't bless the desperate, it blesses the ready. This readiness is quiet. It looks like peace. It sounds like boundaries. It feels like self-respect. It's when you stop begging the door to open and start realizing that the door was never yours to begin with. It's when you stop mistaking suffering for loyalty, or waiting for divine timing as punishment. Because now, you finally understand, the waiting was never empty. It was sacred training. The Virgo spirit matures in the soil of patience. Like an old tree that's learned the wisdom of stillness, you've discovered that roots must deepen before branches can reach the sky. And now, those roots, the ones built from every sleepless night, every private prayer, every time you chose compassion instead of bitterness, are about to bear fruit. From a cosmic perspective, this is not a coincidence. There are appointments written in light, moments set long before you arrived on this earth. And yours, Virgo, is approaching. The blessings you once thought were lost, delayed, or denied are simply circling back, right on schedule. Because divine timing does not forget. It does not miss. It does not fail. So when life begins to shift, when doors reopen, when opportunities reappear, when the love you once prayed for walks toward you again, do not shrink. Do not question if you deserve it. You do. You always did. The difference is that now you finally believe it. And that is the full circle. The moment when the giver becomes the receiver. When the one who held space for others is finally held. When the healer realizes they, too, are worthy of healing. It's not a reward for endurance, it's a recognition of growth. So let this be your closing prayer, Virgo. I am ready to receive what I once prayed for. I will no longer reject goodness because I've grown too accustomed to struggle. I will not sabotage peace because I mistake chaos for passion. I will let the good stay, because the time has been set. The blessing cannot be delayed. It cannot be stolen. It has your name written into its light. And the universe, wise, patient, infallible, knows exactly where to find you. And now, Virgo, as this message comes to a close, we return to the place where it all began. The ticking of the cosmic clock that once echoed with urgency now softens into a steady, peaceful rhythm. You no longer hear it as a countdown. It has become a pulse, the quiet heartbeat of divine timing. What once felt like waiting has transformed into readiness. What once felt like emptiness now feels like sacred space, open, wide, prepared to receive. Every moment you thought was silence was never abandonment. It was preparation. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed blessing, every door that stayed closed longer than you wished, they were all aligning with this very instant of awakening. You were never forgotten. The universe always knew where to find you. You have already proven that you know how to give. You have poured love into places that were not ready to hold it. You have carried others through their storms, often at the cost of your own light. But that season is ending. This next chapter is not about effort. It is about allowing. Allowing yourself to be loved, to be seen, to be restored without guilt or hesitation. Because receiving, too, is an act of generosity. When you let the universe give back to you, you honor the balance of creation itself. So breathe, Virgo. The waiting is over. You stand now at the threshold of what was written for you long ago, not as a beggar of miracles, but as the miracle itself. You are no longer the one asking to be chosen. You are the one who chooses to stay open, to stay trusting, to stay luminous. If these words find you today, let them become a declaration. Write it, speak it, believe it. I am ready to receive everything the universe has prepared for me. This is not just a statement, it is a key, turning in the lock of divine timing. And as you whisper it, remember, your readiness will inspire others who have lost faith in their own light. Your healing will ripple outward, touching those who once felt invisible, just as you once did. Because this isn't just the end of a message, Virgo. It's the beginning of your return to balance, your restoration, your peace. The universe remembers you, and now, it is your turn to remember who you are.